Questions 1 through 4 of the 1998 grade 12 Euclid math contest is what I will explain in this video. Question number 1a. If 1 root of x squared plus 2x minus c is 0, is x equals 1, what is the value of c? So they've given a value of x equals 1, and we can just substitute that into x squared plus 2x minus c equals 0. So that would give us 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus c is 0. So 1 plus 2 minus c is 0. Therefore, c is equal to 3. So that would be the answer for 1a. Now, 1b. If 2 to the power of 2x minus 4 is equal to 8, what is the value of x? Well, 8 can be written as 2 to the power of 3. And therefore, since the bases are the same, the exponents must be the same. So 2x minus 4 is equal to 3. Solving for this, we get 2x is equal to 7, and therefore x is equal to 7 over 2. Moving up to 1c now. Two perpendicular lines with x-intercepts minus 2 and 8 intersect at 0b. Determine all values of b. Okay, so we've got two lines. We'll draw a little graph here. And these two lines, we are not entirely sure where they intersect because b is what we're trying to figure out. But we can just label it and then kind of go from there. So we'll draw one line like that, and we'll draw another line like this. Okay? And let's start labeling this graph. This point here is minus 2, 0. They've told you that it has an x-intercept of minus 2. So that means where it crosses the x-axis. And then the other x-intercept is here, which is 8, 0. And that's also directly from the question. And they intersect each other, these two lines, at 0b, right here. 0b. So b is on the y-axis. And they want you to figure out what is the value of b. And they're saying determine all values of b. So I'm assuming there's two, because this graph can be flipped, and it can be a negative value as well. All right? So how do we do that? Well, we can use the fact that these two lines are perpendicular, and therefore this is a right angle. Sorry, I didn't draw this to make it look exactly like a right angle, but you get the point. So if that is indeed a right angle, because these lines are perpendicular, we can just use the Pythagorean theorem on this triangle here. Right? And you know the Pythagorean theorem very well. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. But we haven't been given any distances. We've just been given points. But that's not a big deal because you know how to figure out the distance between 2 points. So let's do this here first. The distance between those 2 points is going to be negative 2 minus 0 squared plus 0 minus b squared. Okay? That's the distance. So that essentially represents a in our Pythagorean theorem. So we just square it like that. And then add to that this segment of the triangle, which is our b, and the distance there, 8 minus 0 squared plus 0 minus b squared. This represents our b, and we're going to square it. And equals c squared. Well, c squared is probably the easiest because it's just from there to there. If from here to here is 8 and from here to here is 2, the whole thing will be 10. So we have 10 squared. All right? So now the good news is that because we have a square root that we're squaring, that just disappears. So we just get minus 2 squared, which is 4, minus b squared, which is b squared. Over here we have 8 squared, which is 64, and minus b squared, which is just b squared. So this looks like 2b squared plus 68 is equal to 100, and therefore 2b squared is equal to 32, b squared is 16, and therefore b is equal to plus or minus 4. So as I had previously stated, there is indeed a b here, which is 4, and there's a b down here, which is equal to negative 4. So those are the two values for b. The vertex of y equals x minus 1 squared plus b has coordinates 1, 3. What is the y-intercept of this parabola? Okay, let's concentrate on 2a. They've given you a point on this parabola. So you just plug that in. X equals 1, y equals 3, and that will allow you to solve for b initially. So we've got 1 minus 1 squared plus b. So this looks like 0 plus b, so b is 3. So we go back and put that value of b in our equation to make the equation complete. Now they're asking for the y-intercept. You find the y-intercept by setting x to 0. So that makes y is equal to 0 minus 1 squared plus 3. So y is equal to negative 1 squared, which is 1, plus 3. So therefore y is equal to 4. So the y-intercept is 4. Okay? To A. The vertices are minus 3, 1, 5, 1, and 8, 7 of this triangle ABC. All right, let's draw this out and see what we get. So we've got 3 vertices. First one is minus 3, 1. So if this is minus 3 and this is 1, here's our first one, and that's A. Second one is 5, 1. So about here, 5, 1. This is 5, and this was 1. And our last one is 8, 7. So let's see, 8 is probably around here, and 7 is somewhere here. So this is C, 8, 7. And these 3 vertices form a triangle, like this. All right? So they want you to figure out the area of this triangle. Well, the simplest way to do it is just to extend this dash, dash, dash like that. And that will allow you to get a height. And as you know, the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. The base is from here to here, okay? And that means that if this is from here to here is 5, and this is 3, then the base is 8. So that's 8. The height I just drew from here to here, and that looks like if this is 7 and this is 1, 7 minus 1, so this is 6. So the height is 6. So therefore 1/2 times 8 times 6, so that looks like 48 over 2, which is 24. 24 is the area of this triangle. All right, in the diagram, the line y is equal to x plus 1, which I'm assuming is that line right there, intersects this parabola, which they have given as x squared minus 3x minus 4 at points P and Q. Determine the coordinates of P and Q. All right, so wherever they intersect, these two y's will be equal to each other. So therefore, x plus 1 is equal to x squared minus 3x plus 4. So solve this, you get x squared minus x from both sides, so we get 4x minus plus 5. Sorry, that was a negative 4 in there. Sorry about that. So that would mean minus 5, and that is 0. So the good news is we can factor this. We don't have to do the quadratic equation. So this factors into x, 5, 1, and I believe negative 1 and plus 1, like that. So therefore x is equal to 5 and negative 1. Now we want the coordinates, so we also need the y values. Well, the y values you can get just by plugging into that equation or this equation. This one is a little simpler. So for the first x coordinate, y is going to be 5 plus 1, which is 6. So that means the first point is 5, 6. And the next one, y is going to be negative 1 plus 1, which looks like 0. So the other point is negative 1, 0. And if you want to match these according to the diagram, it looks like Q is 5, 6, and P is negative 1, 0. Okay? So those are your 2 points. The graph of y equals m to the power of x passes through the points 2, 5, and 5n. What is the value of mn? All right, so they've given you this relatively simple formula, and they've given you 2 points that satisfy 5n and 2, 5. They want you to find what is the value of m times n. So let's substitute these into each other. So let's start with 2, 5. So 5 is equal to m to the power of 2. And then let's put in 5n. So we'd have n is equal to m to the power of 5. All right? So if I just work with this one and I break this up into m to the power of 2, m to the power of 2, and m to the power of 1, I essentially just broke up that 5 into 2, 2, and 1. The reason I did that is because m to the power of 2, they've already given you. It's 5, and we figured that out. So n is equal to 5 times 5 times m. So n is 25m. Now at this point, we're not really quite there yet because we want to figure out mn. But that's okay, we can multiply both sides by m, like that. And if you do that, you'll get mn is equal to 25m squared. Now 25m squared, we know because m squared is 5. So 25 times 5 is mn, and therefore mn is equal to 125. So you see, just a little bit of manipulation of these numbers gives you the correct answer. (3b) now. Jane bought 100 shares of stock at $10 per share. So 100 shares at $10 per share. Okay? So that would mean she spent $1,000. When the shares increased to a value of N dollars each, she made a charitable donation of all the shares to the Euclid Foundation. Now at this point, she receives a tax refund of 60% of the total value of her donation. However, she had to pay a tax of 20% on the increase in the value of the stock. Determine the value of N if the difference between her tax refund and the tax paid was $1,000. All right, so N represents the increase. So we started at 10, so 10 plus some value. We don't know, so I'm going to call it X. Now, what I want to do in this question is to explain it clearly. So what I'm going to do initially is to give N a certain value, explain it, and then come back to this 10 plus X, because otherwise it'll be kind of confusing. So I'm going to let N equal 12. All right? So first thing is that the stock increases to $12. It was initially 10. So now her 100 shares are $12 per share. So now they're valued at $1,200. She then donates all of this to the Euclid Foundation, right? But she gets a tax refund of 60% of that donation. So 60% of this, which is 0.6 times 1,200, is her tax refund, and that is $720. So this is her tax refund. All right? But then she also has to pay 20% tax on the increase in the value of the stock. Well, the stock went up from 1,000 to 1,200. So she had to pay tax on the increase in the value, which is $200 when you go from 1,000 to 1,200. And how much tax? 20%. So 0.2 times 200, which is equal to $40. That's tax paid. All right? Now they're saying that the difference between her tax refund and tax paid, in their question they're saying 1,000, but in our question we have to figure that out. So the difference between the tax refund and the tax paid for us is 720 minus 40, which is 680. All right? So I hope you understand that. If you do, I can now move forward with the X's. All right? Okay, so here we go. And I'll keep what I've written so that you don't get confused. Now, let's go with N is equal to 10 plus X. So if N is equal to 10 plus X, you now have 100 shares at 10 plus X per share. So that means the total value is 1,000 plus 100X. All right? Now you have to pay 60% tax on this total. So it would be 0.6 times 1,000 plus 100X, which is 600 plus 60X. All right? This is your tax refund. Now you have to pay a tax of 20% on the increase. So you went from 1,000 to 1,000 plus 100X. So your increase was just 100X. So you've got 20% of that you have to pay in taxes. So that would be 20X is how much you have to pay. Now the difference between the tax refund and the tax paid is the difference between 600 plus 60X and 20X. This minus that. All right? And they are telling you in the question that is equal to 1,000. So plug 1,000 here and you solve for X. So we got 600 plus 40X is equal to 1,000. And therefore 40x is equal to 400, and therefore x is equal to 10. Now, what is the question asking us? Determine the value of n. All right? Well, n is equal to 10 plus x. So n is equal to 10. Our value for x is 10. So 10 plus x is 10 plus 10, which is 20. So n is equal to 20. That is the correct answer to this question. Number 4. Consider the sequence t equals 1, t2 equals -1, and t to the n is equal to n minus 3 over n minus 1 multiplied by t to the n minus 2 whenever n is greater than or equal to 3. What is the value of t to the 1998? All right, let's see what we get. I like using capitals, it just makes it less confusing for me. 1998. All right, so I'm going to concentrate on this formula that they gave me. So if n in our case is 1998, we've got 1998 minus 3 over 1998 minus 1 times t to the 1998 minus 2 would be 1996. All right, so let's keep going here. So the top looks like 1995 and the bottom looks like 1997. And then we've got 1996. So again, using this formula, t to the 1996 is 1996 minus 3, which is 1993. 1996 minus 1, which is 1995. And then t to the n minus 2, which is 1996 minus 2, so t to the 1994. All right? Let's keep going here. Hopefully, eventually, you'll see some sort of a pattern here, or I will see some sort of pattern first. So this is what we have so far. T to the 1994, let's just keep going here. So 1994 minus 3, we've got 1991. 1993 minus 1 is, 1994 minus 1 is 1993. And t to the n minus 2, which would be 1992. Do you see something happening here, or do you want me to keep going? I see something happening. I see that there's 1995 here and here, 1993 here, 1993 there, and therefore you can most likely see a pattern. Well, let's just do one more, just in case it's not perfectly clear. So we've got these terms here so far, and we'll do one more. 1992, n minus 3 would make it 1989, and n minus 1 would make it 1991, and t to the 1990. All right, so at this point, hopefully you can see that this is indeed a pattern that helps us, because it helps us cross things out like that. So if we were to keep going, you would eventually get something like this. You would get all the way down to, I'm going to go all the way down to t to the 4. And if you were to write that, you would have beside it a 6, because it would be essentially 6 minus 3 like that, and 6 minus 1. Okay? So remember, this is just a pattern that I'm using this formula for. And then the very last one, if you keep going, 1997, ... 6 minus 3 is, of course, 3. 6 minus 1 is 5. T to the 4 is going to be 4 minus 3 over 4 minus 1 t to the 2. Okay? And finally, the good news is we're done here. We got 3 over 5. We've got 1 over 3. And t to the 2, they've given us. It's negative 1 right there. So it's negative 1. And remember, all of these canceled. This is going to cancel with the one that's before it on the numerator side. This cancels. So this leaves us with simply negative 1 over 1997. And that is the correct answer for t to the 1998, which is what they're asking for in the question. So now let's go to 4b. The nth term of an arithmetic sequence is given by t to the n is 555 minus 7n. If Sn is the sum of t1 plus t2 all the way up to tn, determine the smallest value of n for which Sn is less than 0. Okay, so Sn is equal to t1 plus t2 plus t3 all the way up to t to the power of n. And we know that t to the n is equal to 555 minus 7n. So t1 would be 555 minus 7 times 1. And then t2 would be 555 minus 7 times 2. And then so on. 555 minus 7 to the 3 for t3. And then all the way up to 555 minus 7n, like that. So this looks like we can group this together. All the 555s can be grouped together, and we've got n of them. So that becomes 555n. And then it looks like it's 7 times 1, 7 times 2, 7 times 3, all the way up to 7 times n. So we can factor out the 7, and that would give us 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way up to n, like that. So we got 555n minus 7. And if you remember, there's a formula that you can use to add up consecutive numbers from 1 to n. And that formula is n times n plus 1 over 2. Okay? So now we've got 555n minus 7n times n plus 1 over 2. And they want this whole thing to be less than 0. So we can set this less than 0, like that. And let's solve for n. So the first thing I'll do is I'll multiply through by 2 to get rid of the fraction. So this will become 1110n minus 7n times n plus 1 less than 0. And this will become minus 7n squared minus 7n less than 0. And therefore this is 1103 n minus 7n squared is less than 0. All right? And we can put this on the other side. So we'll get 7n squared minus 1103n is greater than 0. And if we factor out an n, you'll get 7n minus 1103 is greater than 0. Now n is obviously greater than 0 So we have to concentrate on this part. 7n minus 1103 is greater than 0, and therefore 1103 is less than 7n. And finally, n is greater than 1103 over 7. And this is equal to approximately 157.5. So since n is an integer, right, n represents a number, and we have calculated that n has to be greater than 157.5. So n, the smallest it can be, is 158. All the other values of n obviously are greater than 158. So this is the smallest n, and therefore that's the answer to our question.